Your heart, keeping it clean and on the deen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. Welcome. My name is Fatima and I'm your host, and this is a Muslim radio. If some of you guys know me in real life, you'll know I am a grade A yapper. I can chat for England, and honestly, it is high time I put that to good use. Hence why this podcast was born. So I'm just starting this little series on my channel where I have these deep talks, and hopefully you guys can somehow relate and maybe learn something. The stuff that I want to talk about is all within the realms of our religion and the deen, and hopefully I can spread some knowledge in a fun way. I hope. Because here's the thing, I'm trying to take our experiences, or my experiences at least, and I feel like no one's ever had an original experience ever, right? So we're all kind of going through it together and kind of relate them to the deen and use the deen as our guidance. Honestly, anything in your life can be related to the deen, and our identities essentially are rooted in being Muslim, right? So we can always try to find a way out through our religion. But here's the thing, I am honestly not a scholar, and I think that much is obvious. I just have the ability to go down a rabbit hole. And truthfully, the hardest thing about starting a podcast or talking on the internet in general is trying to sound like myself. I really don't want to watch this back and feel like I'm putting on a persona kind of thing. I want to watch it and feel like that's me. This is how I talk in general, and I'm not being fake or whatever. You know what it's like having a phone voice? I don't want this to be my phone voice, guys. It's not the vibe I'm going for. Anyways, I kind of just wanted to say from the get-go, this isn't for the guys, okay? I'm for the girlies. I feel like there's plenty of resources for guys out there, and there's not really that many for women. This is not for the male species, so bye. I don't know, okay, let's get into it. So today's topic is close to the heart. Literally, you can tell by the title anyway. We're diving into the concept of the heart in Islam, not just in the physical sense. Well, not in the physical sense at all, actually, because I don't know anything about it in the physical sense. What can affect it, and how we can keep our hearts clean and pure. By the way, this isn't saying your heart is going to be 100% pure, you're just going to be pure. I don't think anyone has actually reached pure heart condition. You get, it's a process, and it's not a linear process. The heart in Islam means something that turns, so you can go through phases. Your heart will turn. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can feel weird. So yeah, the goal is to strive to be better. Obviously, it's not to reach perfection. Okay, so at some point you kind of have to ask yourself, am I actually a nice person? Am I looking at other people through a kind and empathetic lens? Am I judgmental? Do I give people the benefit of the doubt? Do I want the best for other people? And honestly, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how high you've climbed. Everyone has to check in with their heart. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily in the body there is a piece of flesh. If it is sound, the whole body is sound, and if it is corrupted, then the whole body becomes corrupted, and verily it is the heart." So when we're talking about the heart in Islam, we're not just talking about in the physical sense. Like I said, yeah, it's pumping our blood, it's doing its thing, keeping us alive, blah 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 blah. We're talking about it in the sense of it being the spiritual center of our being. It's where we feel all of our emotions, our intentions, and our connection with Allah. And it defines how we feel about ourselves and about other people. All of the emotions you feel when you feel anxious or worried or excited or whatever, you always feel it. Literally you feel it in your heart. So the state of our heart plays a really important role in the measure of our faith. The heart is where your faith lives. It's where God consciousness resides. So Allah mentions in the Quran that it's not the hearts that grow blind, but the hearts... No, It's not the eyes that grow blind, but the hearts inside the chests. I feel like this verse is kind of telling of a lot of things, and not just, I feel like it can be applied to so much, because this tells us that spiritual blindness is very real, and it can come about when your heart is clouded. And it's kind of like when you're talking to someone and you could be talking for hours or debating for hours or whatever, and they're just not seeing your point of view. It's not because what you're saying isn't logical, it's because their hearts are literally blind to it. Like, the truth can be right in front of their eyes, but they won't see it. Kind of like everything that's happening around the world right now, we're literally seeing it. We're seeing the corruption, we're seeing the horrific acts, we're literally watching it, but people are just blind. Anyway, when you have low iman and you're doing stuff you wouldn't normally accept otherwise, it just doesn't feel right. Something feels off. You're not doing the right things and you feel yourself slipping. It's because your heart is spiritually not well. And in essence, our journey to Allah is actually a journey of purifying our hearts, opening it up to the deen and removing all the bad stuff and the nasty. It's difficult because if it was all just about doing your worship, like praying, fasting and doing all of this, then it would all be, I think it would all be a bit easier, because those are all actions and obviously you have to do them. I'm not saying don't do them and be a good person, because it doesn't work like that. You have to do the acts and you also have to be nice. Like, it goes hand in hand. So how do we do it then? How do we make sure our hearts are healthy? How do we start that journey to clean out our hearts? It starts obviously with recognizing the signs of disease, and this can take a lot of reflecting and renewing your intentions. I guess let's start with recognizing the signs of your heart being not well. So the diseases of the heart are kind of like what essentially makes someone morally not good. You wouldn't want to be around someone who's this kind of person, who like shows these attributes. I'll explain. So something like arrogance, someone who thinks they're better than someone else, and it's pretty sneaky, honestly, because it's not as simple as thinking I'm better than her, because I don't think really anyone, well, it's not as obvious as that. I think it's a bit more subtle. It's kind of almost like judging, like looking at a sin that someone has done and thinking that could never be me. I'd never do something like that. I'd never take off my hijab like her, or I'd never wear all that makeup, or I'd never do this, I'd never do that like so and so is doing. Well, I'm sure nobody wants to be a sinner, right? But what's worse than sinning is thinking you're better than someone because you're not doing that same sin. No one's perfect. Everyone is doing something, and just because theirs is something you can't imagine yourself doing doesn't mean that you're better. What happens when they get guided? What happens when they do become better? They stop doing whatever they were doing that you are belittling them for. Where does that leave you because you thought you were better than them? In the blink of an eye, that could be you. So the best thing to do is just make dua that Allah guides them and yourself. Another form of arrogance is, it's pretty easy because it's seeing other people's achievements online or in real life. I'm just saying online because it's just so easy to see stuff online nowadays. I sound like such an old person. It's just online. Everything's just online. Like, get off your phone. Oh, God. Anyway, so seeing people achieving things online and thinking, oh my God, I could have done that like way better, or that person isn't a good person. Why is God giving them what I want? Arrogance blocks our ability to be humble, and it blocks our ability to be grateful. Someone who is arrogant can never just be happy for someone. Like, you can't just see someone who's started their own business or they're doing something and be like, oh my God, good for them. Like, I hope it goes well for them. Great. You'll always be looking at people with the mentality that you're better and overlook their achievements because, well, I could have done that better. I think we all need to remember that it was arrogance that led Shaitan to disobey Allah, because the reason he disobeyed Allah was because he was arrogant. He thought he was better, which is mad because, like, you know, he was created. Another disease of the heart is envy, which can lead to evil eye, but that's a whole other story. I'm really not going to get into that because it's long. And And again, envy is tricky because everyone can feel a little bit jealous sometimes. Again, especially now because it's so easy because of that damn phone. Anyway, like it can be as simple as, oh, I want that new bag, I want that new whatever. Why do they have it and not me? And how can I get it? Envy makes our hearts restless and unable to be content. You're never going to be satisfied if you're constantly looking at what someone else has, what this person is doing. You know what I mean? Instead of thanking Allah for what we have, we focus on what we don't have. And if we start focusing on what we do have, we'll realize I actually have a lot, like a crazy amount of things. It's not just about material things. Obviously, it can also be about experiences. Like, oh, why did they all do that for her? No one did anything for me. Oh, my friend is going on holiday too, so and I wish that was me. It's so important to stop any and all comparisons. Who did what, who went where, who traveled, who got a job, who got married, etc. These are things that are just not in your control. Like everyone is going at their own pace and they're doing what Allah has written for them in that moment. And same goes with you. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. If you want to make comparisons, look at those who have less and then you'll be grateful. And it's easy to look at other people's successes and compare it to your own life, but what you don't see is their failures. No one is posting their failures or their flaws. Everyone is just setting up the camera for a good moment and posting it. It's kind of that simple. And then when they turn the camera off, it's back to life. It's back to the struggles. The same thing that you're going through, the same struggles. Just because someone posted like their birthday or whatever online, it doesn't mean that everything is great. Next is greed. And I'm not just talking about being greedy in terms of money. I mean in everything in life. Greed for status, recognition, attention. In modern day terms, kind of like gatekeeping. You know when you're like, I don't want to share what I use or what I do so they don't copy me? Yeah. And I'm sure no one likes fan behavior. But if we keep being greedy or ungenerous with what we have, again, we'll never be satisfied. Also, you can kind of think about it in a way of sadaqah jariyah, right? If I share this thing that I find beneficial or I use or I do with someone, whether it be a piece of knowledge, skincare even, whatever it may be, if I share this with someone and they use it and they pass it on to someone else and they teach it to someone else, that's getting me reward without me even thinking about it. That is just passive reward, income, whatever. Passive reward. Because I chose to like get off my high horse and share something with someone. By the way, this isn't to say you should be a pushover. This is saying you shouldn't be worried that someone is going to do better or become better than you if you share something with them. Being kind of greedy in that sense, it will keep your heart chained to the dunya and it blinds you to the bigger picture. Like you're not even supposed to become the greatest thing here. We're not meant to be here. This is not for us. We're not supposed to be satisfied here even. We're meant to strive for a better world, and we're not going to do that by obsessing over worldly things or worrying about our image or worrying about any of that nonsense. You're literally here to rack up as many good deeds as you can for a better life in the akhirah, like after you die. The next one is hard-heartedness. It can happen when we become emotionally detached, when we lose empathy and compassion. I think this is also super common. When I was writing about this episode, I kept thinking, bro, this is something I feel like the average Joe goes through. It's a common experience, I think. Sometimes lack of empathy is shown without realizing it. We can become something really unlikable if we lack empathy. And I think you don't have to understand what someone is doing or going through in order to be empathetic. Like, I don't have to relate to your experience or be able to think, oh yeah, no, I know how they feel. You don't have to know that. You don't have to understand that, because we don't all have the same experiences, but that doesn't mean we are any less deserving of compassion and understanding. The Prophet ﷺ actually warned against this. He said, the worst people in the sight of Allah on the day of resurrection are those whom people leave undisturbed for fear of their evil. When our hearts harden, we lose the ability to connect with others. And it's honestly, it's not cool. I feel like there's this whole notion of I don't owe anybody anything, and this self-obsessed culture is only trendy online. It's actually not cool, because in real life it means you have a hard heart and nobody likes you, or nobody wants to be around you, or no one thinks good thoughts when they think of you. Hard-heartedness can also mean scrolling past a post that has to do with any crisis going on around the world, like people asking for donations, for shares, to use their audio because that means they'll get money, etc. And you kind of just go scrolling past that because you can't be bothered, or like, oh my god, there's so many, oh my god, I just want to relax right now, I don't want to see this. It costs us absolutely nothing to repost or use an audio or whatever, you know, and then you can go back to relaxing. Other people can't go back to relaxing because that's literally their life. The last one I'm going to talk about is showing off, which is riya. And this is when we do an act that is good, but we're not doing it for the sake of Allah, we're doing it for validation from other people. We should be seeking Allah's approval the most. Please the creator, not the creation. And the first people Allah will question on the day of judgment are those who became reciters, so that people would say, oh look, sounds good, he's a reciter. And I feel like that's really easy to fall into. Your intention for doing something good or saying something good is so that people can not praise you for it, but you want people to think you're a good person, like, oh yeah, let me just slip in there that I've done this, or like, let me just say that I've done that, or like in a conversation. Listen, none of us are perfect, and that's the point I am trying to drive home. There's room for improvement, and there's always ways to be better. And guys, arguably this is the hardest part about trying to be more practicing, because like I said, the prayer, the fasting, the hijab, that's great, and these are things you do for Allah. But having good character, having a good heart, thinking well of other people, that's obviously stuff you do to other people. And if you've hurt someone else, ultimately you need their forgiveness. Whereas if you don't pray, you can repent and Allah will forgive you, you know that. But can you say the same if you come face to face with somebody you spoke badly about or belittled? Literally just take a second to think, what's the last thing I said about someone that wasn't good? What if I stood face to face with them right now and told them I said this about you? Do you think they would forgive you? Probably not. I haven't really talked about all of the diseases of the heart, but I think I've like scratched the surface. Moving on to, okay, like what can you do if you related to any of those things I said? What can you do if you feel like, yeah, I get a little bit jealous of people sometimes, like I get jealous easily. Let's talk about how we can heal from these things and protect our hearts from these diseases. Fantastic, give me 14 of them right now. Let's go. So the first thing is gratitude. I think for a lot of the things I've talked about, being grateful can point your heart in the right direction. You can make something fun out of it. Like if you're a journal person, like myself, I love to journal occasionally. Write down genuinely what you're thankful for. I know it's cheesy and I know it feels like, oh, okay, great, like everyone says journal, we get it. But listen, it's helpful. Sometimes I'll look back at older entries that I've made in my journal, and it's just so fun to look back on and be like, oh my god, like I remember that, and I'm kind of thankful for those moments. And it can be something as simple as, bro, I had a really good lunch, like alhamdulillah for that, or I'm literally able to have the heating on, which I think a lot of people should be grateful for right now because freezing. Next thing is remembering Allah often, so like dhikr. And this can be really powerful because Allah literally tells us in the Quran, verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Get it? Your heart will find rest. Thanking Allah and being content and practicing gratitude keeps you grounded and makes you realize that actually you have everything that you need. You don't need to look at what so-and-so has. Whoa, like the decor in their house, I need all of that. So the more you thank Allah, actually, the more He will give you. Next is making dua, praying to Allah to keep your heart firm on His religion. Because again, like I said, your heart will turn and your heart will change over time. And so it's important to ask Allah to keep it on the right side. Also making dua for anything really, making dua that Allah keeps us happy, that Allah keeps us grateful, that we don't stray away from being thankful and stuff like that. The dua that is associated, I think, is, oh Allah, turner of hearts, keep mine firm on your religion. So something I've been trying to implement in my own life, and I saw someone say this like ages and ages ago, but basically, if I ever feel a certain type of way about someone, or if I don't like them or whatever, before giving shaitan the opportunity to put bad thoughts into my head and like judgments and whatnot, I quickly make dua for that person. Even if that person has wronged me, even if I really can't stand this person, it's better for me personally to not let any negative feelings fester, because ultimately my feelings are hurting me more than they're hurting them. So just making a quick prayer for them, making a quick dua for them, like, you know, may Allah guide them, I hope they're doing great and whatever they're doing, whatever it may be. And then I guess shaitan will leave you alone, innit? Because like why are you making dua, bruv? Like, that wasn't my aim. Okay, the last thing is self-reflecting, and it can literally mean pausing and rethinking what your intentions are. Like, and I think we need to do this often, right? We need to actually ask ourselves what our intentions are for doing things. We need to pause and think and make good intentions intentionally, on purpose, because actually when you make a good intention, even if you don't end up doing the act, you still get the reward for the good intention that you made. Okay, so if you're about to like see someone, if you're about to say something, just pause and think, is what I'm going to say going to come off as mean, or is it going to be seen as me not being nice? Is it going to make this person feel a type of way? If you shift your mindset slightly and think of it in a way of leaving a good impact on everyone that you meet, or leaving a piece of knowledge with everyone, so again you can get countless rewards, like that's a really good way to think. And I know it's hard, and I feel like you'll feel so much better, or your heart will become better, if you don't think about people's negatives. I think it can be so exhausting to look at things in a negative way. Okay, I think focusing on yourself and bettering yourself in every way you can, and not thinking about what every other person is doing, will help you be less critical of others. And honestly, I feel like ever since I've started writing this episode, I've been so conscious of like my own thoughts when I'm with other people, because I'm like, oh my god, would this mean that? Would this mean this? Okay, I guess this kind of brings us to the end of the episode. If you've listened this far, thank you. May Allah reward you, and I really hope you've learned something. Yeah, I guess stay tuned for more, inshallah. If you guys want to follow along on my socials, I'll leave them in the description. I don't know, do people say that? I rarely ever finish an episode of a podcast ever, because I'm like, give me more, and then I go on to the next one. Anyway, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys, and have a good day. See ya.